Alright guys, last video of the week. I know that makes you happy and me happy. So this is a 50. I'm doing a unit rate problem and it's number 3. Okay guys, every time I do a unit rate, unit means, that I'm going to go ahead and this is always going to be set to 1. So we're looking at 1 unit. That's what we're looking at here. So if I burn off 850 calories in 1.25 hours, I want to know how many calories I burn off in a single hour. So that's what I'm looking at. When I do something in unit rates, guys, it gives me something I can compare to. For instance, if I go to the grocery store and, a jar of peanut butter sells for, $3.25, and another jar of peanut butter is a different size, but it sells for $4.15, and I'm really a bargain hunter, I'm going to look at the unit price because I want to know which is cheaper per ounce, in which case, which one am I getting more for my dollar. So this gives me a sense of what it is that I'm comparing to. So in this case here, right, the first thing I'm going to look at is, do I have a single fraction equal to a single fraction? And the answer is yes. So step 1, guys, is always going to be to say, so let's write that up. Let me grab a different color pen. Here I have a single fraction, and it's equal to a single fraction. So that's the first thing I look for. When that happens, right, my life is a little bit easier because then I know I can find a cross product, right? And even my S's can cross there. I hate it when it drags like that. Anyway, so let's go ahead. I'm going to set up my cross multiplication. So here I go. So this is going to be, 850 times that 1. And that has to be equal to 1.25 times my H. All right? So there we go. So the nice thing about unit products, right, is unit rates is that, this is really easy to multiply. 850 times 1 gives me 850. So I end up with 850 is equal to 1 and 2500ths H. Now, my goal is to get H here by itself. So, this is I'm multiplying H by 1 and 2500ths. So, in order to undo that multiplication, I'm going to divide both sides by 1 and 2500ths. Right? This is going to give me, these are going to cancel, 1 and 2500ths divided by 1 and 2500ths is 1, right? And 1 times H gives me my H. So I'm going to get H is equal to, and now you need to stop and think a little bit, guys. So if I take 850 and I divide it by 1 and 2500ths, the question I should be asking myself, am I going to end up with more or less than 850? And since I'm dividing by more than 1, right, this is going to work out to be less than 850, right? So let's go ahead and do that, and we get 680, right? So I guess, this should have been an X here, guys. That's my bad. X. So X is equal to 680. So this is telling me that I burn 680 calories in 1 hour. All right, so now I could use that, right, to compare and say, wow, am I burning off more calories per hour than if I was, watching TV, or if I was, whatever it is I'm doing. If I was playing soccer, do I burn off more or less? And I could see what's the best activity I could do. If I only had an hour to give to exercise, right, what's the one that's going to burn off the most calories? So maybe that's what I was looking for here. So going through it again, guys, when I have a unit rate, right, that tells me I'm going to find out how much I burn off in a single hour here. Now, it's really important, guys, right, if I have calories over hours here, that on this ratio, right, I have calories over hours as well. Okay, the first thing I check for is, do I have a single fraction equal to a single fraction? And the answer is yes, so I can do cross product. Right, so I make my little x, and I have 850 times 1 is equal to 1 and 25 hundredths times x. This is easy, right? 850 times 1 is 850. And now I want to solve for x, so I'm multiplying. So I'm going to divide by the same amount, right? And I'm going to get x is equal to 680. Once again, guys, notice that the 1 is less than the 1 and 25 hundredths. So this number up here, right, has to be less than 850 in order for it to remain in equality. So I think what I'm going to ask you guys here is, what is, you know, when I'm doing a unit rate problem, right, I want to make sure my units are the same on both sides of the equation. So calories over hours, so over here I'm going to have calories over hours. So that's what I'm going to ask you. So I'll probably give you an example and ask you what the units have to be on this side if these are the units over here. And your extra credit problem, this one you're going to have to research, guys, is give me an activity that would burn off approximately 600 calories per hour. All right, end of the first one. Now I'll do the next problem. All right, this is 27. I have a canary's heart beats 130 times in 12 seconds. Use a proportion to find how many times its heart beats in 50 seconds. So I'm going to start with my units. So I'm looking at how many times does the heart beat in a second. So that's what I want, that's what my unit shall be. So let's go ahead and do that. So I have a fraction over here, right? And I'm going to have heartbeats per second is equal to, and I have a over here, and I'm going to have heartbeats per second, right? So now I'm just going to fill in the numbers as they follow along. So I say, okay, its heart beats 130 times. Well, that's a heartbeat, so that guy is going to get put into the numerator. So 130 times, okay? And then I look over here, and it says it beats 130 times in 12 seconds. So over on this one, right, I'm going to go ahead and put 12 seconds. So it beats 130 times in 12 seconds. And it says, I want to find how many times it beats. So how many times it beats. So that's going to be, right, my x. So this is my x. That's what I'm looking for. And then in 50 seconds. All right, so there's my proportion. Once again, you know, I have a single fraction equal to a single fraction. So I can do this by cross products. So that's going to give me, right, 130 times 12 is equal, let me back up on that one. Hold on, that looks so ugly, I just can't stand it. I don't know why it does that. All right, here we go. So this won't erase for me, so I quit. So I'm going to cross multiply, so I have 130 times 50 is equal to 12 times x. All right, so let's go ahead and 130 times 50, right? So let's go ahead and do that. So that's going to give us 13 times 5 is 65, right? And then I have my 2 zeros, so my answer has to have 2 zeros in it. So there we go. We end up with 6,500 is equal to 12 times x. And now I'm going to go ahead and, you know, I'm multiplying 12 by x. So to undo that multiplication, right, I'm going to divide both sides by 12. So divide that by 12, divide that by 12. Once again here, right, the 12 divided by 12 is 1. 1 times x. That's going to leave me with my x on this side of the equation. And then I'm going to take that 6,500 and I'm going to divide it by 12. And that's going to give me, right, an answer of, let's see, that's going to give me 541 and 2/3. So it beats 541 and 2/3 times in 50 seconds. Okay, so let's go back and look at it. So once again, I started with my units. Why did you do that? I started with my units here. So I had heartbeats over seconds, right? And then, I filled in my numbers. So it said 130 in 12, so 130 in 12 seconds. And it asked me how many times does it beat. So I was looking for how many times it beats. So there's an X in my numerator in 50 seconds. Cross multiply, single fraction equal to a single fraction. So we cross multiply. I have 130 times 50 is equal to 12 times X. Right? 13 times 5 is 65. I have 2 zeros here, so I have 2 zeros in my answer is equal to 12x. I was multiplying x by 12, and I want to get it by itself. So to undo multiplication, I divide both sides by 12. 12 over 12 is 1. 1 times x gives me x, so I have my x by itself here. And then 12 goes into that, 541 and 2/3. All right, so I think what I'm going to ask you is, how did I start this problem? And I started it by creating my two fractions, right? And I set up my units first, and then I just looked to make sure, right, when I filled in the numbers, right, this was heartbeats, this was seconds. This is what I'm looking for. It's a heartbeat, and this is seconds. And that way I'll prevent myself from making a mistake. All right, there's your video for the day. Woohoo, we're done. All right, guys, and then you get Thanksgiving week off. You don't have to watch the video for a week and a half. All right, guys, there it is. Happy Thanksgiving.